Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. Sorry it's been a while since I've posted. I've got sick for the first time in 5 years. You can still hear the nasal. Had to go and get new glasses. My dad had surgery. So a lot of things went on. But I will start with Trump because he's everywhere. Now, Trump pled not guilty to felony racketeering charges as well as numerous conspiracy counts. He's scheduled to be arraigned on September 6th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. He will not be present, as this is right under Georgia law. And an arraignment, for those of you who don't know, is basically when the judge reads the charges to the defendant, which is Trump, what the charges are, what their constitutional rights are, and if they do not have enough money for an attorney, the court will appoint one, all that good stuff. Now, on Monday, August 25th, Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, testified for approximately 3.5 hours to determine if his case will be moved to federal court. The argument is that Meadows' trial should be held in federal court because of his role as a federal officer. And this claim is that the charges he is facing took place in the course of his duties as a federal officer. However, Fulton County prosecutors and many other legal experts disagree with that premise, arguing instead that that Meadows violated the Hatch Act, a 1939 law prohibiting civil service employees, excluding the president and the vice president, from engaging in political activity. Now, prosecutors argue that the phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State, the Cobb County audit appearance, etc., were not necessary duties, but political actions aimed at keeping Trump in office. He underwent those activities under the auspices of Trump's instead of as a president, as a political candidate for president. Rudy Giuliani, let's get into him. He lost his defamation case, which is fabulous. It's a step in the right direction for justice. He lost the defamation suit brought by the two workers, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. He accused the two of voter fraud and completely upended their lives. Republican state officials in Georgia found no evidence of them ever altering votes. And as a result of this accusation, they faced death threats and harassment from Trump supporters. The judge issued what is called a default judgment against Giuliani, holding him liable for defamation. And that is because Giuliani hasn't been turning over any evidence through the legal process called discovery. Giuliani claims it is a punishment by process. So Judge Howell rebuked this claim and stated he is donning a cloak of victimization that may play well on a public stage to certain audiences. Now he has to pay tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to Moss and Freeman, on top of nearly $100,000 a judge had previously ordered, and it still has to go to trial. Now, among Republicans in Georgia, calls have been growing for Governor Kemp to call a special session with the hopes of impeaching DA Fani Willis and removing her from office, all to save Trump's butt. So Kemp has refused, stating that doing so would be unconstitutional, as he has not seen any evidence that would warrant such action. The House Judiciary has launched its own investigation into DA Willis, claiming that her actions in prosecuting Trump and his co-conspirators are politically motivated. It's ridiculous because they just can't seem to grasp that he's being held accountable for breaking the law. And that's his supporters are the ones that are having trouble grasping that. The ones in politics with him, the Jim Jordans, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, know exactly what he did. But I think they're just afraid that they're next. And so they're trying to stop any testimony for fear of their own damnation. So, now, the Proud Boys. Joseph Biggs, a former member of the military who helped lead the efforts by the Proud Boys to take over the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was sentenced to 17 years in prison for seditious conspiracy, among other crimes committed during the riot. Prosecutors wanted to apply a terrorism enhancement, which leads to longer prison time. The judge did apply one of those enhancements to his role in the destruction of a fence surrounding the Capitol building, which, once gone, no longer kept the mob back from the law enforcement protecting the building. Now, there is a movement that is beginning in many different states that are trying to keep Trump off the ballot in 2024, citing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This states that a public official is not eligible to assume public office if they engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. or had given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So that is in the process of, in multiple states, people are filing the papers. Two members of the Conservative Federalist Society, actually, William Bowd, I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering that name, and Michael Stokes Paulson, endorsed it in the pages of a Pennsylvania law review. Since then, two more legal scholars have made the same case in an article published in The Atlantic. Excuse me. Now, there's a Florida tax lawyer filed challenge to disqualify Trump from the 2024 race, again citing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So that's really starting to pick up some steam. Hopefully, if we can get him off the ballot in some key states, because following the Constitution, he won't stand a chance of ever gaining political office ever again. I don't think, honestly, that he'll stand much of a chance of gaining the office this time, just because he has kind of just ruined it with all independents. The only people that actually still support him are the far-right conservatives. So there are two civil rights organizations taking part in the stance of keeping Trump off the 2024 ballot, focusing on Nevada, California, Oregon, Colorado, and Georgia, encouraging them to take a stand by disqualifying Trump. If they succeed in keeping Trump off the ballot, it would be unprecedented and likely challenged in court, but they definitely have a shot. One of Trump and Giuliani's favorite lines lately has been, if they can do it to me, they can do it to you. And it just kind of, it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the way the law works. If you break the law, you're going to get held accountable, ideally. So yeah, if they're doing it to Trump, then of course they're going to do it to you if you decide to try to overthrow the government. Of course that's what's going to happen. That's what happens. If they can do it to a former president, they can do it to anybody. Yeah, that's called law. That's how it works. So it's a ridiculous thing, but his supporters are just totally buying into it, hook, line, and sinker. They're like, oh, they're coming for us next. Oh my God, they're coming for us next. If they can get Trump, they can get us. Unless you broke the law, they're not coming for you. That's it. You can say whatever you want. They're not coming for you for your free speech. They're not coming for your guns. They're not coming for you unless you violate the law. End of discussion. And in another step towards fascism, one of the Democratic prosecutors that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis bragged about removing is speaking out, claiming that DeSantis fired her for going after corrupt cops. He bragged that he and his allies ousted her because she was going after and prosecuting their cops. She claims that they thought she was overcritical of law enforcement and didn't do anything against real criminals. In other words, she's not doing anything against the peons, the brown people, the petty crime. She's actually holding people in positions of power accountable, and they don't like that because they're corrupt. And they want to be above the law because then they can get away with whatever they want, and they can turn Florida into the first fascist state. Well, I mean, it's already there. Let's be real. but they can turn it into a fascist state even more so, and then hopefully that fascism will spread, is their way of thinking. It's scary. That's the direction that the Republican Party wants to take this country. DeSantis with his private police, even though he's having a hard time finding people to fulfill that position, last I heard, but it's well on their way. Anyway, so they said that she wasn't doing anything against real criminals, implying that there is a difference between citizens who commit crimes and cops who commit crimes. Another state prosecutor, DeSantis removed in August of last year because he would not enforce an abortion ban signed by the governor, because he said it was unconstitutional. He disagreed with it, and it was just ridiculous. So DeSantis is retaliating against people who stand up against him. Now let's move on to ICE. In Michigan, a man in ICE custody was sent into a jail general population unit with an open wound from surgery, no bandages, and no follow-up medical appointments scheduled, even though he still had the surgical drains in place. Federal inspectors found that he never received even the most basic care for his wound. And in Georgia, a nurse ignored a detainee who was urgently asking for an inhaler to treat his asthma. Even though he was never examined by medical staff, the nurse documented that he had been seen. In Pennsylvania, a group of correctional officers strapped a mentally ill male ICE detainee into a restraint chair and gave the only female officer scissors to cut off his clothes for a strip search. This is just a tiny portion of the more than 1,600 pages of previously secret inspection reports written by experts hired by the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, They examined more than 24 facilities across 16 states from 2017 to 2019. The expert investigators found negligent health care, including mental health care, unsafe and filthy conditions, racist abuse of detainees, inappropriate pepper spraying of mentally ill detainees, and other problems that in some instances contributed to death. The report provides an unprecedented look into the ICE detention system. Other examples include a detainee who was found to be HIV positive, but was never told. People found to be have hypothyroidism or diabetes and did not receive care. One person was documented to have blood in the urine since January 2018 without treatment. A pregnant woman did not receive adequate medical attention after slipping and falling in the shower, causing vaginal bleeding. She was given Tylenol, and that was it. Mental health services wildly inadequate. People with mental disorders had diagnosis and treatment plans that were completely inaccurate. Unnecessary and excessive force resulted in IVs being pulled loose. Deploying a taser at the top of a staircase causing a fall and serious head trauma, knocking a man unconscious. The officer then threatened to taser the unconscious person and then moved them, which could have led to permanent injury of the neck and spine. 29 incidents of use of force between 2018 and 2019 were reviewed. 62% involved detainees experiencing acute mental health distress. Dirty medical clinics, paint chips on the floor, debris from crumbling shower on the floor, full trash cans that are not emptied on any regular basis, dirty mattresses in treatment rooms, random pills on the floor, medical devices were grimy and dusty, ant infestation in the storage room, flies and ants found in food service areas, uncovered and or undated food found in cold and freezer storage, expired food, food not stored and thawed properly, verbal abuse by staff, referring to female detainees as ice fish, tuna, or mackerel, and retaliation for any sorts of complaints. So basically, it's just proving what we all knew, is that the people who are in ICE, the ICE agents, see the refugees as less than human. And because of that, they treat them as less than human. And the fact that we have allowed this to go on so long. I mean, we've all heard rumors forever, since the inception of ICE, about the abuses that go on, the illegal acts to get people arrested and deported and put into ICE detention. All sorts of horrible, horrible things that our country is doing. Human rights violations, and it's all led basically by one party that is encouraging it. Because that one party does not see people who are different than them as human beings. And therefore, they don't care if those human beings are mistreated in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they think it's justified because they shouldn't have come here the way they did. They should have came legally. Well, in a lot of these instances, they did. It is allowed by our laws that if someone crosses the border and they turn themselves in, that is completely legal. And if they don't like the way that system is set up, change it. While you're in office, change it. But again, when the Republicans held the power, when they had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they did jack shit. Because if they fixed the problem, or if they allowed Democrats to fix the problem, they wouldn't have that leverage to hold over their supporters, to incite that fear into them that we're being bombarded, that the great replacement theory, that they're coming for your jobs, that they're coming for your kids, that they're bringing fentanyl across the border. It's Americans. Most fentanyl coming across the border are from Americans going to Mexico and coming back through ports of entry. So they don't want to fix the problem. They want to have something to bitch about that they can point at and see, look what the Democrats are doing. They want open borders. They're lying to the people. The media is lying to the people. There are no open borders. Biden has done virtually nothing to change the policies at the southern border. He's maintained a lot of the Trump policies. And I just don't understand how people can look at someone who is struggling, who is fleeing unimaginable horrors to try to come to a place where they can hopefully have a better life and not see a human who is struggling and not want to help a human who is struggling because they lack empathy. And that is one of the biggest issues that the Republican Party has, is zero empathy for anybody who looks different, who thinks different, and who believes different. If you are white and you are Christian and you are cis and you're straight, they might show a little bit of empathy for you. If you're male, females don't really count. But if you're male, they might have a little empathy for you. But you have to be of a certain class. So it's just ridiculous. And it's exhausting knowing that these kind of atrocities are happening in our country. I mean, it's exhausting knowing they happen anywhere, let alone in our country under our noses, and nothing's being done about it. So anyway, that's all I have for you. Sorry if it was kind of jumbled, still not feeling the greatest. But anyway, vote. No matter how big, how small, how inconsequential, your vote matters, and read everything you can get your hands on. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.